Does the look make the man or does the man make the look? Let's talk about the new film, A Different Man. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Past, and I'm here to talk to you about A Different Man, which is coming to select limited theaters on September 20th, 2024, and then a wider release on September 27th, 2024. It is a new A24 film starring Sebastian Stan, and my hot take is, I definitely think you should watch it. It is interesting. It is a very different kind of film. It's a dramatic, dark, but often kind of funny portrait of a person getting everything that they want, only to yearn for what they had and what they used to despise. It is a very interesting film. It's a very well done film. I enjoyed it a lot. There's one thing I didn't like as much about it, but overall, I think it's a fascinating movie, and I definitely think you should check it out. So, all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the film, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So, as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some big twists along the way. I would turn it off when I get there. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, A Different Man focuses on Edward, who's played by Sebastian Stan. He is a person, and I will admit I missed the first few minutes of this film, so I'm not sure if they explained what was happening with him, but he had some sort of like facial disfigurement. I remember they said something about like tumors in his face that were growing that caused his face to just kind of like swell in certain places and kind of affected his vision, affected his speech, affected his ability to interact with people. And so he is kind of living this life. He is like living this kind of quiet existence, but he's yearning to be an actor. He's yearning to connect with more people. And eventually, a medical procedure comes about that might give him this opportunity. But if he takes it, is he going to regret this? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the music. It has a really great musical soundtrack. It has a really thick, like noir style music. The film actually has a very kind of like noir feel a lot of times, especially in the earlier parts when you're seeing Edward's life and like the way that he is living and the way that he's like unhappy with his life. And the music is perfect for that. It also does have some light jazz in some scenes and some beautiful clarinet when it wants to change the mood. But overall, the music is perfect for this film. Second thing I love the cinematography. Again, it's like a noir kind of film. So it has this like dramatic, deliberate camera work that really makes this feel like a film from a different time. It feels like an older style movie. It'll like focus in on certain things. It'll like focus in on people's faces as they're talking. It is really, really interesting. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you kind of moving. It keeps you wondering. It definitely makes this feel like more of a thriller than it is at times. The third thing I love the humor. It is not like laugh out loud funny, but there are definitely some funny moments here and there, some funny dialogue and some situational comedy, which is good. It kind of breaks up the film, kind of makes it, it gives you kind of like moments of levity in a film that deals with like a fairly serious subject matter. The fourth thing I love the effects. I mean, the effects for Edward, for transforming Sebastian Stan to Edward are fantastic. They look amazing. They look legit. And then when they start to change, it also looks good. It's it's on the practical side. I think they only use practical effects for this, and it looks fantastic. The fifth thing I love the meta. There is like a meta aspect to this film in the second half that is really interesting and really kind of like sparks the dialogue and sparks kind of like your thoughts on this movie. So I'm not really going to go to here because I don't want to spoil it, but there is definitely some interesting moments in this film in the latter half. And the last thing I love the cast. It's a fantastic cast, although I think Sebastian Stan kind of steals the show. There are kind of three main people in this: Sebastian Stan, Renate, Reinsve, and Adam Pearson. They all do a really, really good job. Although Sebastian Stan, I think, is a standout because he has to portray Edward through a lot of different emotions, a lot of different experiences. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much, and this is kind of like more neutral. It's not that I didn't love it. It's just the ending, the ultimate ending, went in a very different direction than I expected it to. Overall, I think it was fine, but the way the story progressed was a little bit surprising to me. I thought that maybe it would have gone in a different direction. I didn't read about this movie, so I didn't know if this was like previewed in the trailers. But for me, I thought the way that the film progressed, especially at the very end, was a little bit surprising. But I still enjoyed the film. I still liked it. I still thought it was a really, really good film. So definitely check out A Different Man when it comes to select theaters on September 20th, 2024. If you do see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And I'm going to really quickly go into a recap and ending right now. So if you don't know what happened in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So A Different Man focuses on Edward. He lives alone. He's an aspiring actor. He seems to want to succeed, but also kind of tries to like live a quiet life. He tries to blend. He doesn't try to put himself out there, it seems, even though he's auditioning for acting roles and kind of wants to be an actor. It feels like he is kind of uncomfortable with the spotlight. I think mostly because of, I think his looks. He has some facial disfigurement that really kind of affects how he interacts with people and whatnot. He does get roles, but most of them I think are based on his looks. You see one role he gets in like a work video about like how to interact with people that have like facial dysmorphia and things like that. So he does get some roles, but I don't think he gets the kind of roles that he wants. Now, early on, he befriends his neighbor Ingrid, who comes over to help him. I think he cuts his finger. I didn't see how he cut his finger because I missed this part of the movie, but he cut his finger and Ingrid helps to like patch him up. And after that, they kind of like become friends. She kind of treats him like a regular person and they start to hang out regularly. I think it's really nice for Edward. I think he really, likes Ingrid and wants to like be more than friends. Although Ingrid, at times seems like she might be interested, but other times, seems like she wants to maintain just a friendship. At one point, they get fairly close, and I think Edward like, you know, not grabs, but like, holds her hand, and this like causes something to change in Ingrid, and she like, leaves suddenly. So it feels like he wants more. Maybe Ingrid is unsure about it or doesn't want more. But after this, Edward kind of like becomes a little bit more reclusive. He stays in his apartment a lot. He watches, like, hears Ingrid going on dates and things like that and kind of living her life. And I think this makes Edward very, very unhappy. And also his living situation is unhappy. He is in this apartment. He has this like leak in his roof that is just getting worse and worse. And for some reason doesn't say anything. I think because he probably doesn't want to like raise it, or maybe he has raised it and they don't care about him, something along those lines, because this leak is just continuing to get worse and he just doesn't do anything about it. Now, Edward's medical condition, his like, I think tumors in his face and other things that are happening in his face require him to get surgery. And he's talking to his doctor, and his doctor's like, hey, they've been fairly stable for the last couple of years, so we don't have to have any new surgeries. Let's try to see if we can go for another year without any surgeries. And then his doctor mentions this like experimental drug, this experimental treatment program that might help him. And so eventually, he undergoes this treatment. He's not sure if he's in like the group that's getting the drug or the placebo group, but he tries it anyways. And they pump all these chemicals into his face and they give him some pills to take and things like that. And it's supposed to basically allow his skin to like heal itself, and also almost it feels like maybe make his skin feel like putty. Like the way they're talking about it, allows the skin to like regenerate and reform and things like that. So essentially, the idea is it's going to potentially make his skin heal itself and cause him to like lose the tumors and other things that are on his face. Now, we see some small signs early on, but I was expecting this to be like a dramatic change. But it wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. Like we see some small signs early on that maybe he is in the group that's getting the medicine, because that cut on his finger, which was bad up until this point, after he got this treatment, it like magically healed. So it seems like maybe he thinks that maybe he might be part of this group, but his face doesn't like radically transform. It kind of stays the same. Maybe there's small improvements here and there, but you don't really see much. Now, eventually, that leak in his roof, something like falls through that leak, maybe like a piece of rotted wood or something falls and like hits him in the face. And after this, Edward like is trying to treat that wound, and like some of his skin just peels off. And it's a really well done scene. It's very good practical effects. It looks grotesque. And when he goes to the doctor the next day, it's all healed. So he thinks, okay, maybe I'm getting this treatment. Maybe I'm like in the good group. But his face still hasn't transformed the way that I think he wanted it to. So eventually he is like coming back, and his stomach is really upset. It's like he's like late in the treatment, I guess. His stomach is really upset. So he goes to a bar and like vomits up some blood. And then later he like vomits in the bar itself. So he goes home after this, and that night he just has a horrible night. He's like shivering in bed. There's like blood on his sheets. And eventually he just kind of like peels his face off, and like felt like a Possessor kind of vibe. Like if you've seen Possessor, is a weird film about wearing other people's skin essentially. Not in so many words, but kind of. And so when he is like peeling his face off, he like just peels off like chunks of his face, and then later soaks in a tub. And when he soaks in the tub, you see like his skin heal, and he emerges as Edward, but looks like Sebastian Stan. He looks like Sebastian Stan. So that night after this, he's like shocked at how he looks. He's like amazed. And so he goes to a bar, and he goes to the exact same bar he was in earlier when he vomited and whatnot. But no one recognizes him. No one recognizes him at all. He gets a drink. Some like Mets fans come, and they're, I assume, celebrating a win. I assume it's a rare occasion for the Mets fans, and they all crowd around him. They, you know, hug him. They like celebrate with him. Like he like instantly gets adopted into the group. He feels like he is living, what he would seem as a normal life. So he has a fun night. He's hanging out with these people. He hooks up with someone in the restroom, things that he has never experienced before. And so he comes home after this like crazy night, lays down in bed, is trying to get some sleep, and someone knocks. and it's someone repairing his apartment. They've heard of the hole. Something triggered it. I don't know if he did it or someone else complained, but they're coming to fix that hole in his roof, that leak in his roof. And this repair person doesn't recognize Edward. He, says like, "Who are you? Like, you're not the person who lives here." He's like, "Oh, like I'm Guy." He like makes up a new persona for some reason. And he's like, "Yeah, the person who lived here, Edward, he killed himself about a week ago, and so I'm a family friend." And so it sounds like Edward is going to just like cut off his old life and start anew. And unbeknownst to Guy or Edward, Ingrid overhears this conversation. And this is weird. This is why I didn't really understand why he wanted to like forge a whole new life. I thought he would just go to Ingrid and be like, "Hey, look, I got this medical procedure. It's still me." Ingrid clearly liked him. I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to like, maybe he thought that Ingrid didn't like him. I don't know. Maybe he wanted to like start afresh. Maybe he didn't want Edward's burdens. But for some reason, he just like completely ditches his old life. He leaves his cat that he had, he leaves Ingrid, and he goes and like forges his own life, which I thought was weird. I thought it was very weird. I thought that he would at least like try to continue being Edward, except Edward with a different face. So now we jump in time and we see that Guy has moved into a new apartment. He started a new life. He's in real estate. He's like the face of this real estate company because he's so attractive. And so he is, doing well in real estate. He has a nice apartment. He is dating. He seems like he's successful in dating. And he is just, I guess, living the life that he always dreamed he would. But eventually he sees Ingrid randomly and follows her to like an off-Broadway theater. And there he sees that Ingrid is preparing a play that she wrote. She was a playwright, but she never actually written the play, but now she finally has, and it's this play called Edward. And so Guy kind of like awkwardly goes in and, finds out about this play. Ingrid doesn't recognize him. He reads a line for the play and then leaves. But I think Guy is intrigued by this because obviously the play is about him. It's about Edward. And so he, I think, wants to play this role. This is a role that he was born to play. He comes back later using a mask that the surgeons gave him. It was like a 3D print of his face that they gave him. And so he has this mask of Edward. He puts this mask on and he tries out for Edward. And he does fantastically because he's Edward. So it's like he gets the mannerisms, he gets the way that Edward says his words, he like transforms back into Edward. And he's very, very good. And so Ingrid casts him. So Guy also starts dating Ingrid. They start hooking up, and it seems like Guy has everything he wanted now. He has a new life. He has a successful life. He is dating Ingrid. He is playing himself in a play, so he is now acting. But all this kind of unravels when we meet Oswald. Oswald is another actor who randomly comes into the show wanting to audition, but he comes in and sees that they are already performing and that Guy is up there with his Edward mask. And so Oswald comes in like saying he wants to audition, but he's like, "Oh, no, wait. I didn't realize that you already had someone here who could play." And Oswald also has like a facial disfigurement, but he is much different than Edward. Edward would like shy away from life. He didn't want to be, basically be in the spotlight. Oswald is just like gregarious and outgoing and fun, and it feels like he doesn't let anything stop him. He's a really, really fun character. He's just like, he's an actor. He seems to know people. He seems to go out and have fun. He doesn't like hide from anything. He seems to just be experiencing life. And he also seems exceedingly friendly and exceedingly nice. So after he like accidentally barges into here, Ingrid's like, "Oh, would you like to, watch us rehearse?" And he's like, "Sure, of course." And then this is when Oswald starts to inject in their lives. And so Oswald takes a liking to Guy because, he thinks Guy's a good actor. He thinks that he's portraying Edward very well. And so Oswald keeps running into Guy randomly. And it doesn't feel weird, doesn't feel like forced. It just feels like Oswald's a nice person. He sees Guy and he like comes in and like wants to say hi. But Guy, I think, is uncomfortable here because Guy is seeing Oswald and kind of like seeing what he wanted to be. He's seeing like this person who is living with who he is. He's comfortable with who he is. He's enjoying life. He's doing things that Edward always wanted to do, but was like, I don't know, too worried about, too afraid to do. And so Oswald is everything that Edward wanted. But now Edward is Guy, and Guy, I think, is jealous of Oswald, which is it's a weird thing to see, but they do it really, really well to kind of like have this happen. So Oswald injects himself into this like world and like keeps helping Ingrid with the play. And while they're rehearsing, Guy and Ingrid start having like disagreements over how Edward should be played. And it's an interesting kind of like meta here because Guy is talking about how Edward should feel, and Ingrid's like, I created him. You're telling me what the person I created would feel, and we all know that Guy is Edward, and so Edward knows how he would feel, but Ingrid created him, in memory of her friend, and so she thinks that this is like her performance. And so there's some disconnects over like how Edward should be acting, how Edward should be feeling. And eventually, under because of Oswald's suggestion, they do essentially what Guy was asking. And Guy gets upset about this because he's like, "What? When I suggest it, it's not good, but when Oswald suggests it, it's fine." And so this causes some friction. And eventually, after like a really bad makeup test where they try to put some prosthetics on Guy's face to make him, transform into Edward, they don't want him to wear that mask the entire time. Ingrid just goes ahead and casts Oswald to be Edward. And this hurts Guy, obviously, because this is clearly the role that he was born to play. This is him. And so he gets upset about this. But Oswald, in like true friend fashion, is like, I only agreed to it if we could keep you in the play. So Guy is going to play the like revealed Edward. Like after they kiss in the play, Guy is now, Guy appears, and Guy is the person that Ingrid in the play sees. Like she sees him, she sees his inner beauty, all of that stuff. So Guy doesn't like this. He wants to be part of the play. He wants to play this role, but Ingrid is adamant. Ingrid is certain, and so this causes a wedge to happen, and it seems like they kind of stop seeing each other. But Guy is now obsessed with this. He's obsessed with like Ingrid. He's obsessed with having, I guess, reclaiming this life that he thought he had. And so he starts following Ingrid, and eventually he confronts her at the apartment, saying, "Why was Oswald here?" And he's like, "Why would you know that Oswald's here?" He's like, "I just know." Clearly he's been stalking her. And so they get into a fight. He also starts kind of unraveling at work. He dresses up as like kind of Oswald, essentially. Like he puts on his Edward mask and wears like more flashy clothes and is more outgoing while he's showing this house, which looks very unhinged, as it should. And this causes him to get fired at work. So it seems like Guy is kind of unraveling here. Now, eventually, he assaults Oswald on stage during one of their performances. Oswald is performing. Guy comes in with the Edward mask on and starts like yelling, like, "I'm Edward, you can't have this, I'm Edward." And they start to, tussle. Guy tries to lunge at Oswald. Oswald just like, essentially like judos throws him. He doesn't like throw him intentionally, but he's trying to get him out of the way, throws him over somewhere, and that causes some stage props to fall on Guy, essentially hurting him and forcing him to like essentially be immobile for a while. Now, Oswald and Ingrid, because they're good people, take Guy in. So this kind of injects Guy into their lives even more. So now he is in like essentially probably hell because he has seen Oswald, he's seen Ingrid, they're getting closer, and Guy is just like an observer in this because he can't move and he can't take care of himself. So Oswald and Ingrid are. This culminates in a really fun scene where like Michael Shannon is there as Michael Shannon talking to Oswald and Ingrid about playing Edward in a movie. And he's like talking to Oswald about the character, and Oswald's like, "Well, I just, took Guy's great interpretation of Ingrid's work." And so they're talking about like Edward's character, not knowing that like Edward is actually there and like listening to this and listening to like how them talk about how they should portray him. So Guy is recovering, but Oswald and Ingrid seem to get closer. It jumps in time a little bit, and Ingrid is pregnant. It seems like they are living together, and Guy is still there. He's going through physical therapy, and he's with a physical therapist who is like helping him to walk. So he's starting to learn to walk again. He's starting to move. And after Ingrid and Oswald leave the apartment, the PT like says some crude comments to Guy about Oswald. He's like, "Well, that guy must have a lot of money. Like, I don't understand why she's with him. Like, that's crazy." Things like that. The PT then like goes to the bathroom, and this seems to anger Guy. And so when the PT comes out, Guy stabs him. And I was like, that is a very extreme turn. I understand he's probably angry. I understand maybe he is defending Oswald, even though he was kind of angry at Oswald. Maybe he's defending him now, but for some reason, he stabs the PT. So this causes Guy to then go to jail. He's in prison for a while. You see him in prison. He seems to just be like really quiet and whatnot. And eventually he gets out of prison. Years later, he gets out of prison. And so he's walking out as a free man. And wouldn't you know, he runs into Oswald. Oswald, the perfect, wonderful friend, comes, gives him a hug. So he's so happy to see him, even though like their last meeting was probably, seeing him covered in blood after stabbing someone in his own house. Oswald is still great. Oswald still like goes up to Guy, asks how he's doing, and insists that he comes to dinner with them. Ingrid, Guy, and Oswald all have dinner together. they're updating him on their lives. They've like written a new play. It's like a bigger blockbuster play. They're gonna move to Canada to go like live in a commune, I guess, something like that. And so it seems like their lives are doing great. And Guy is just kind of like sitting there fairly quiet listening. And at dinner, Oswald like looks at Guy and is like, you haven't changed a bit. And then the camera just kind of like zooms in on Guy's face and he just starts kind of like laughing and smiling. And that's the movie. That is a different man. Like I said, I liked a lot about it. I really liked the movie. I thought it was an interesting like noir drama piece and a really good look at like getting what you want and if that is a good or a bad thing. The director said that, one of the biggest achievements of this was like seeing Sebastian Stan be jealous of Oswald's life and what Oswald has, which I thought was a really, really interesting part of it. You would definitely get that in the film. You get that like Guy is jealous of Oswald, even though Guy has everything that he presumably wanted. He is now jealous of Oswald and jealous of what Oswald has. So I thought that was a really interesting dynamic too. And I thought it was a really interesting movie. It was just a really good movie. I didn't love the ultimate ending. The like stabbing of the person was weird. The like prison part was a little bit strange. And I also kind of like don't know why Guy didn't just admit to being Edward, but I guess that would have been a very different movie. So in any event, I did enjoy this movie. I think you should check it out. So if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you like and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.